Hi, welcome to episode 366 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop where I sell my handspun yarns and knitting patterns. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, February 21st, which is a it is a bank holiday here in the United States. It is President's Day, and I am working anyway today, as I know quite a few of my friends are, those that aren't in banks or the post office or government, but we are working diligently away on a Monday. It is beautiful here today. It is going to get up to 70 degrees, although we have been informed that later this week we are taking a polar plunge, and I think on Wednesday it's going to be under 20 degrees. So we are enjoying the warm weather where we can. It was warm enough that I got outside yesterday for a little exercise in the sun and a little bit of wind. We did get lots of snow here last week. We got between 6 and 7 inches, and of course that is all gone now. It was but a dream. So winter continues on in the Midwest with these weird ups and downs and warmer times and cooler times. So today it's about 2 p.m. and I decided to take a little break so that I could podcast and share some projects with you. I hope you are doing well and that you have found time in the last week for some crafty pursuits. I have lots to show you today. I am really pleased with my crafty output for this past week. I spent a lot of time crafting. It's interesting. I feel for a while I was feeling like I was not getting much done. After the knit-a-thon, which I did basically 2 weekends ago, my hands were a little sore, and so for a few days I didn't do a lot of knitting, and they're still a little bit fatigued. I've still been stopping earlier than I normally do, but I actually just got tons done this week, so it was great. So today's tea, even though it's warm outside, I am drinking warm tea. I am drinking from the Downton Abbey collection, the Downton Estate Blend. I still have several of the Downton teas. They were special teas that the Republic of Tea did. I don't know if they're still doing them or not. Several of them were quite good, but of course the show has been over for a while, although I think I heard maybe there's going to be another movie but special, or maybe it is a movie. I don't know. Anyway, wonderful period drama. And the Downton Estate Blend is a classic Earl Grey with vanilla. And I will tell you that I am not actually much of a fan of Earl Grey, mostly because I don't care so much for bergamot. But with the vanilla, it kind of mellows it out, and I really like this one. And I am drinking it today in my Naughty Birds mug, which is all different kinds of birds that have true names. They are their correct names, but they might sound a little naughty, like the red-billed oxpecker, or the bearded tit, or the Andean cock of the rock. So it is my fun bird mug, and I love this mug. It was given to me by a friend, and it tickles my sensibilities. So Earl Grey Downton Estate Blend with a little bit of vanilla. So that will be a good pick-me-up to get me through the other tasks I have this afternoon. So let's talk about knitting. I actually have 2 finished objects today, one that you have seen before and one that you haven't. So the first one that I finished is the Crosshatch Wrap by Shayna Billow, and this is a pattern that makes use of pooling yarns. That is yarns where certain sections of the color, they are dyed such that the color, there are contrasts in color, and then you can use those contrasts in color to highlight sections and do something different. Pooling projects have been around for quite a while, but they have been resurfacing lately, and Shayna decided to make use of the trend and designed this really cool wrap. Mine looks like more of a scarf, which I'll get into in just a minute, but it is a long wrap that is knit on the bias. It starts at a point and ends at a point, and then in between you are knitting it on the bias, but you are maintaining your stitch count. So you're increasing on one side and decreasing on the other, and of course when you get to your feature color, you are adding in these great cross-hatched stitches where you're passing some stitches over the other. It's basically a little bit like cabling, And it's super fun. I knit mine in Zen Yarn Garden. So they have produced a variety of yarns that they are calling their Jump in the Pool series, which are yarns that are dyed so that they will pool. And many of them have a solid or semi-solid color on one part of the skein, and then on the other part of the skein they have a point of interest. In this case, it's bright yellow with some white and red speckles. And they are designed specifically to be used for pooling projects. We've done some tutorials for Zen Yarn Garden's Tutorial Tuesdays, which are free, I might add, and you do not have to buy the yarn to attend. You just register for the Zoom session and you can attend. We've done a cowl, and then we're doing this crosshatch wrap coming up. I used a Zen Yarn Garden Gradient Trio. It is 3 skeins of their fingering weight yarn. Each skein is 200 yards for a total of 600 yards. So I probably put between 575 and 580 yards into this wrap. I have a very, very small... Where did I put it? It's here. I have a very small ball left over, just a few grams, and as you can see, it's got the dark purple, and then it's also got those bright yellow sections. They have a variety of colorways. They are selling out really, really fast every time they put new ones up. They are continually dyeing, so keep checking back if you don't see the color you want. The modifications that I made for this are Shayna Billow's pattern calls for either 800 or 1200 yards. For her, it is kind of a scarf wrap or a much wider wrap. And because I only had 600 yards, what I did is I didn't increase as many stitches as she suggested in her pattern. I stopped a little bit sooner. And this led to a scarf that once I blocked it and it laid out, it's about 80 inches long, so I probably could have even added a little bit more width, but I am between 7 and 8 inches wide here. So it's a nice width, it is a nice scarf, and I will be putting some photos on my Instagram that I took today of a couple different ways I think you could wear this piece. If you are interested in learning more about it, we are going to be doing a Tutorial Tuesday on Zen Yarn Garden, and Shayna Billow will actually be leading the Tutorial Tuesday and talking about how she designed this scarf, how to do some yarn management, and then also how to do this crosshatch stitch. We will be doing that on March 15th. Again, that's free to attend. You don't need to buy the pattern or the yarn, although you're certainly welcome to and knit along with us. The pattern is already available on Ravelry. It is the Crosshatch Wrap by Shayna Billow, B-I-L-O-W. And that is what I have done here. And unfortunately, I cannot tell you specifically what color this is because mine came without a tag. So, but I will find out and add that to my project notes. Just so you know, all of the project notes that I complete using a project when I knit samples are available on Ravelry. I have chosen to make those available because it is one of the places where patterns are available, and I want to add my notes somewhere so that people can access them. I will tell you that Zen Yarn Garden often takes my notes and then also adds them to their page where they sell the kits. So if you cannot use Ravelry and you want to see what I have done, when you look for the kits, most of the instructions will be up there. They also tend to post them on social media. They post them as notes from the sample knitter. So, or if you have questions and you can't find what you need, you are welcome to always message me directly. So that's the crosshatch wrap done. The second finished object that I have is not something that you have seen. This is a hat. I talked to you last week about pulling some of my old skeins of handspun out of the stash and turning them into things. So this was back when I was known as the Stash Buckler, which is actually probably before I started the Corner of Knit and Tea. So many of you may not remember that at all. This was when I started selling my handspun, and my blog was also called the Stash Buckler back then. So yes. So I took a skein of superwash Chevy wool. I called it Castaway because back then I was doing things all in pirate. The Stash Buckler, I was kind of pirate themed. So I don't remember. I believe this came from Well, this may have been a braid of Hello Yarn. It may also have been a braid from Spunky Eclectic. I cannot remember. I spun it quite a bit ago. The podcast is 8 years old, so this predates that. And it was back in the days when I was a fairly new spinner and I spun bulky weight. And so this is 3.6 ounces, 103 grams, and 113 yards of a bulky weight yarn. And I went looking for a simple pattern. I find often that when I knit with hand spun, the simpler the pattern, the better. If there are lots of details to the pattern, hand spun and the details often compete with each other, and so it's really hard to see them. So I chose the Wister Hat, which is by Courtney Kelly of Kelburn Woolens. This year they are designing a year of free hat patterns to go with their Germantown bulky. A couple years ago when they launched Germantown, they launched a year of free hat patterns for worsted weight. So this is there for bulky weight, and this is the hat. Now I will tell you, first of all, I think the patterns do compete with each other a little bit. I mean, I enjoyed doing this and it wasn't terribly complicated, and you can sort of see the swirl in there. However, part of the reason you may not be able to see the swirl is also because I misread the pattern. I was supposed to be slipping these swirled stitches on some of the rounds, and I knit them every round. Some rounds I did the it's a 1x1 cable, and some rounds I knit them, but I did not do precisely what I was supposed to do. So perhaps the reason that the pattern is not super visible on this hat is because of user error, not because of pattern error. So this is what I came up with. I really, really love this. I had forgotten actually that this was superwash, but Cheviot is kind of a crisp wool. It is a little bit more of a hardy outer wearing wool, but I am donating these to go to very, very cold climates. And I basically used up the entire skein in the hat and the pom-pom, which I absolutely love. It is just a big, ginormous pom-pom. I had anticipated that the hat pattern would use up pretty much everything I had, because the skeins of Germantown are, I think, right around 120 yards, and the pattern called for a single skein, but I had enough left over at the end to go ahead and do the pom-pom. So only modification I made with this is I didn't slip the stitches as I was supposed to. The only intentional modification I made with this is that I didn't have a size 10 needle, so I knit this all on a size 8, which means it came out a little bit smaller, but that's okay because Wool Aid is looking for hats for kids and teenagers, so I figured it would be fine even if it wasn't like full adult size. Two modifications, one intentional, one not, but one skein of hand spun out of the stash, and I am super pleased with how that came out, and I'm just going to put that aside in a box. I realize now is probably one of the coldest times of year in a lot of places, but I'm going to try and knit for several more months and get several more skeins out of stash, and then send off a box maybe in time for next fall as it grows cold. So I realize I'm kind of a season off, but I still want to continue making these, and I have pulled out maybe 5 or 6, 7, 8 skeins of hand spun from my stash that are all kind of early days when I was a newer spinner. The yarns are thicker, they have a few problem areas. This one I didn't end up cutting anything out of, but there are a few where I think I probably will cut a few sections out of them. But my thought was just to use them up and turn them into cozy gifts for cozy knits that can keep people warm. And honestly, if they only last a single season, that's fine. I mean, not that I'm crafting them with inferior materials, but if they go to someone who is homeless and they only keep them warm for a season, that is fine. I'm glad that I was able to help. So that is the second finished object. So the third knit that I'm going to show you today is something that I've had in progress for a few weeks, and I have made tons of progress this week, and I'm really, really happy. I have been working on a color affection shawl for my aunt. I'm using 3 colors of fingering weight. One is dyed by my friend Christine, who is Treasure Goddess. This is her Pieces of 8, and it's actually on her Sparkle Toes base, so it's got a little bit of stellina in it. And then the other 2 colors are from Toil and Trouble Yarns. It was their special for the Halloween, the witchy season this past fall, and these are the 2 yarns. It's a dark purple and like a light kind of ashy purple that has a little bit of gray in it, and then a dark kind of plummy purple. And I thought that these played really, really nicely together. So that is what I have decided to do. I'm knitting the Color Affection Shawl by Vera Valimaki, and I only have one section to go. So you might remember this is still all squished on the needles, but I can show you more of it today than I could last week. You might remember I started with section 1, which is in your first color. It is just a garter crescent triangle. Then the second section is two color stripes. You use your first and your second color. And again, this is a crescent triangle. The third section is kind of fun because you get into short rows and you add your third color in. So this is 3 color stripes, short rows, and I have finished that section, which means my shawl is now longer on one side than on the other. Like I said, it is still kind of hard to show you because, as I said, it's on the needles, and even a really long needle will not show everything. But I have finished this section. I have gotten all the way almost over to the other end. As you can see, this is where the short row sections stop. So almost all the way to the other end. And the final section is going to be knit in this dark purple, and it's just another garter section. So that is my task for this week. I will say the rows are really long right now. Probably in excess of 350, well, definitely in excess of 300 stitches, and I think I'm closing in on the 350 stitch mark, so the rows take a while. But I am hoping maybe I can finish this week and actually crank it out before the end of February, which would be fabulous, and then I can send it off to my aunt. So I am really pleased with the progress on this one. I absolutely love these colors together. The 3 of them are just gorgeous, and I can't wait to get this off the needles so that I can block it and photograph it, because it's really hard to photograph and share with you when it is all bunched up on the needles. But this is just a really, really lovely shawl pattern. If you like garter stitch, it's really a lovely knit, and even if you haven't really tried short rows, these short rows are very easy. They're a wrap and turn, and because they are in garter stitch, you don't even need to resolve the wrap, which you'll understand if you read through the shawl pattern. But it is a great first short row project, and it's wonderful with 3 skeins of fingering weight yarn. So I wear mine a lot, and I always get compliments on it wherever I go. So I'm hoping to finish this one this week. However, I do have some other things to be working on, so we'll see. If I don't make it this week, that's fine. I would say it won't be done later than like the first week in March, so you shouldn't have to see it too many more times. And then I'll be able to cast on a bunch of new things. So the final thing I've been working on this week, and I talked to you about it last week, is I am working on a chicken for the City Girl farm. I shared one of the chickens that is available to be adopted right now in my feed earlier this week, and if you want to check them out, you can find them at the City Girl Farm, and I will put a link in the show notes as well. I have been knitting for them for a while now, and I wanted to share the one that I'm working on this week because it is just gorgeous. We are calling it Ballerina, and I don't know if you can see it in the camera. It is black, and then it's kind of it's not natural white. I think it's kind of a beige, and then it's got some pink, a little bit of pink and a little bit of purple in it. And it's really subtle, and I love how it's knitting up. And this one I'm knitting up into a big piece. So this is kind of what I'm looking at this week, and I am loving it. So I have a couple more skeins to work on for this. So this is also something that needs to get finished before the end of the week. But I just wanted to share with you what I was doing and working this all in loop stitch. It's one of my favorite things to do now. And I am getting towards the end of this piece. Sometimes I knit patches that cover the chickens, and sometimes we knit a piece that will cover the whole chicken that is shaped so that it can fit around the body. I'm knitting one of the big pieces this time, so that's what I'm working on there. So I will give you a sneak peek. I almost said a sneak preview, but kind of the same thing. I will give you a preview of what is to come. Now that I have finished the Crosshatch Wrap, it's time to work on my next sample for Zen Yarn Garden. And this time we are working on a spring-summer tee. So I am going to be knitting Talanzia, which is by Laura Ayler, who is Fogbound Knits. And it is a very simple A-line tee that has some lace detailing at the sleeves and then also at the hem, at the waist. And it is really simple. It is it's available in quite a few sizes, and the sizes kind of span ranges. It is not the most size inclusive pattern out there, but it does cover a fairly wide range. And it just looks like a fun, simple knit, something to sort of crank out a tee for yourself for the spring or summer. And the yarn that I am using is Zen Yarn Garden in their Nightshade base, which is the one that has, this is their fingering weight base. And it is, all of their Nightshade bases have a strand of black running through that doesn't take the dye, and then the other shades take the dye. And this is in the colorway Maple, which is this rich, deep, dark red. And it is absolutely gorgeous. And this sample knit actually is a little bit of an accident. They sent me, I was supposed to receive some skeins of this to knit a sample. I was supposed to receive them in worsted weight, and they accidentally sent me fingering weight. And so we decided to look for a project. And because the skeins are very marled, the Nightshade with the strand of black gives it a very marled look. What I thought we needed was a pretty simple pattern, something that again would not be, the marling would not distract from the pattern, and the pattern would not disappear into the marling. And so I think this is going to fit the bill because it's just a really kind of plain tee up top, and then it just has some lace details below. So I'm going to be starting work on that this week. I have caked up my skeins and I'm ready to alternate and get going, and so I will bring that to show you more next week, and I'll let you know what size needle I'm using and all that kind of stuff. So that concludes the knitting section. Let me take a quick sip of tea and then we'll go on to the spinning section. Unfortunately, I don't have a finished spin to show you this week. I thought that might happen because the last braid that I showed you last week that I was working on was a Julie Spins braid. It is in Falkland, I think, and the colorway was Blurple. Or maybe Blurple Forever. I'll have to go look at the label. I talked about it in the last podcast and gave you some of the details for it. Julie Spins has impeccably prepared braids, and her thing is that she always does plus size braids. So the braid that I got was almost 6 ounces, and so I did not expect to be able to finish spinning it within a week. I usually can comfortably get through 4 ounces a week based on dividing my spinning and knitting time. And I'm actually super pleased. I managed to get through both bobbins. So, and as you can see, I did not manage my bobbins appropriately. I spun these on my Ashford Joy. And it has, you have to move the hook yourself. It has a sliding hook feature, and of course I don't do it often enough, so I end up with ill-sized bobbins, just without my yarn coating the bobbin evenly. But they look pretty good. Again, this was kind of a nebula looking colorway to me. It had some really nice bright teals, and then it also had pinks and purples. One half of the braid, I split the braid in half, and I put the half with all the teals in it on one ply, and then I put the half with some of the darker colors on the other ply, figuring that will kind of even it out and make it look like a great skein. And now all that's left is to ply these, and I think that's probably going to be my project for tonight. I was going to start Talanzia tonight, but I realized that I need to swatch, and swatching won't take me long at all, but then I will have to wait for the swatch to dry to make sure whether or not I get gauge. So I'm thinking I'll swatch for Talanzia, and then maybe I will ply these tonight, so that I can put it up in the shop later this week. It's going to be a gorgeous skein. It's going to have quite a bit of yardage because I have those extra 2 ounces in there to play with. So if these are your colors, keep an eye on the Instagram feed because I will be hopefully plying tonight, washing and reskeining, and maybe putting up in the shop around Wednesday. So that's a plan. Which means I need to come up with something else to spin. I went and dug into my stash and I found a gorgeous colorway that is just speaking to me right now. This is called Meddling Little Things. I don't know precisely why, but it is burgundies and browns and a little bit of kind of golds. It's a really gorgeous braid, and it is an 85-15 Polworth silk blend. So it is super soft and super luxurious, and I am looking forward to spinning this one. Polworth silk is definitely one of my favorite blends to spin, and I like Polworth because it's just super soft and it kind of puffs up a little bit at the end. It's just a really, really nice fiber. So I'll be working on this one this week, and we'll hopefully be able to bring this to show you next week. And I'm hoping that I'll finish it within the course of the week so that I can, I may not, because yeah, I may be off on my schedule again, because really I should have started it last night if I wanted to be able to bring you a finished skein next Monday. So I'm not sure precisely how this is going to go. I will bring you a finished skein next Monday, but it will probably be the Julie spins, and I'll be working on this one for the week after. So I think that's it for today. I really appreciate you joining me. If this was your first time, I hope you found something that you liked, and maybe you'll come back again. And of course, if you are a returning viewer, thank you for joining me again. I'm so glad that you're here. I hope that you have a wonderful week ahead, that you are happy and healthy, maybe seeing the first signs of spring. Maybe. I think we're going to go back into winter this week. But I am hopeful that spring will eventually be here. We're only a few weeks away from the spring equinox now. So I hope you have a lovely week ahead, and until I see you again, I will say, as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.